High school football season is here, and Sports on Tap has you covered all season long with in-depth coverage and analysis. You won't want to miss our special football shows each Monday of the high school season from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Catch recaps of all the games, interviews with local players and coaches, and hear if your team is playing in the game of the week. For the best high school football coverage, turn to Sports on Tap. Every Monday from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network.
Welcome to Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. It's our Ohio high school football coverage playoff edition, live from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Sean Duffy, Josh Jeffy. Ed Dick is out on assignment tonight. Guys, welcome back to Studio J.
It's good to see you guys again on a glorious, cool, snowy Monday.
Isn't it amazing? The last Friday night, I believe, for high school
70
playoffs.
degrees.
Yeah, 70 degrees. I was wearing shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And the Saturday games weren't so lucky.
No,
it
not at
was
all.
cold, snowy, windy. And I'm interested to see how the kickers fared. Probably as good as the NFL did on
Probably
Sunday.
better, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
really.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into all the different divisions and regions of the playoffs coming up. But right now we're going to talk Division II Region 5 with Sean Duffy as he has a recap, which we have a few teams left. Division II Region 6, we had Olmsted Falls. Division II Region 5, we have the Hudson Explorers. And Sean's going to give you that recap of what happened this last Friday.
Well, the Division II Region 5 final had Hudson versus number 4 Hudson versus number 3 seed Warren G. Harding. Now, Hudson had made their entire season in the fourth quarter, winning 5 of their last 6, having either been tied or trailing entering the final stanza. Led by their quarterback rotation, a bend-but-don't-break defense, and their backup kicker, the number 4 Explorers, co-champions of the Suburban League National Division, defeated Warren G. Harding 24-21 to win the Division II Region 5 championship. Harding scored just 2 plays into the game as quarterback Lynn Bowden ran for a 73-yard touchdown and a 7-0 lead. Hudson kicker Jonah Weiland, filling in for All-State kicker Grant Gagne, connected for 20 yards, cutting the Raider lead 7-3 with just over 6 minutes left in the first quarter. Hudson's defense stepped up as Joe Sweet sacked Bowden on 4th down to turn the ball back over to the Hudson offense. Bowden would not flinch, hitting Jalen Hooks for a 2-yard touchdown pass and a 14-3 lead for the half. Harding's defense stepped up, forcing a Hudson fumble, recovering inside their own 10-yard line. Hudson struck back in the third quarter as running back Kevin Callahan and QB and quarterback Jackson Parker each had touchdown runs of 1 and 25 yards respectively. Taking a 17-14 lead into the fourth quarter, Harding's Bowden hit Hooks for a 43-yard touchdown reception with under 5 minutes left. Hudson got the ball back and drove down the field, leading to the Harding 20-yard line where quarterback Colt Paley found wide receiver Greg Maley to give the Explorers a 24-21 lead with less than 2 minutes left. The Raiders drove to the Hudson 21 but were unable to complete the 4th down pass in the end zone. Hudson advances to the Division II state semifinals, their 3rd consecutive trip to the state semifinals, again in different divisions. With the win, the Explorers improved to 10-2 and will take on Region 7 winner Massillon Perry on Friday night in a rematch of last year's Division II state semifinal, which was won by Perry. So, guys, Hudson was able to survive, was able to come back and win over a very, very good Warren G. Harding team, and now they're set up for a rematch of last year's Division II state semifinal, which, again, you want to get some payback there, don't you?
I'll tell you what, it's going to be a good playoff game. I mean, looking at Hudson is just a tough team. And then they got to face Massillon Perry, who is also 10-2. That will be played at Union Lake High School at 7:30. I believe it's on Friday.
Yeah.
So it's going to be – this Hudson team, though, they just are very physical. I mean, we saw them early on in the season. Their defense is really quick. Their offense has a lot of playmakers. I mean, we saw Sam Wright. He's a kid that can catch and extend the field. And Jackson Parker, the quarterback, not only can
one
he
of them
throw, they have two
like
quarterbacks.
3 quarterbacks actually.
When we saw him, he was more of a running quarterback, kind of a dual threat a little bit. But they brought in, I can't remember the other quarterback's name who they brought in, but he was more of a passer. Yeah, and he passed the ball really well.
Yeah.
So you look at Hudson's offense; they can score in different ways, but their defense is a bend but don't break defense. Sometimes they'll let you get down, but they really tighten the strings a little bit. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how they handle Maslin Perry.
Yeah, and Hudson is playing well. They're doing what they need to do to win these games in the playoffs. Not winning by a huge margin, but looking at their opponent coming up, Maslin Perry, these two teams, Hudson and Perry, do have a common opponent, and that's Canton McKinley. Earlier this year, it was actually week 3. Hudson did lose to Canton McKinley 51-24. However, Canton McKinley also played Perry, did lose to them 7-6. So that's really no indication how this game will go. But when you're looking at two teams battling out in the state semifinals, you want to look at everything. Common opponent is one of them. So now, again, like I said, Hudson is doing just what they need to do to win these games in the playoffs. And they're not winning by a large margin, whereas you have Maslin Perry team that is winning. I mean, week 2, the second round of the playoffs, they won 66-28, and they've had some pretty decent margin of victories in this in their playoff run. So this is going to be a very tough battle for Hudson. They're going to have to be on their game, and their defense is going to have to start making some stops. Perry has got a pretty high potent offense that can put some points on the board. So it's going to be a tough game for them for sure if they want to advance on to the state championship game.
Well, and looking at Hudson, you talk about just Maslin Perry just dominating so far in the playoffs. Hudson had some close games and started off with a Copley team. They won 29-25. Then they played the number 1 seeded Aurora Greenman, and we saw them play, holding Aurora to only 7 points. They won that game 14-7. That's pretty impressive. But I feel like if you play these close games and you figure out ways to win in each of these, you're primed for a pretty nice run. So, Sean, I know you have some
I think it goes back to what Josh said, is that the defense, if you're able to respond, and I think that's been the whole thing with Hudson this entire playoffs, is anytime adversity struck, anytime they were in it, they were down, and even so, and Ed's recap brilliantly pointed to it. They've come into the final quarter either tied or trailing. So in the last 6 games, I mean, that's your entire playoff history. These kids are not afraid to be down if they're close into the fourth quarter. Like you mentioned, Maslin Perry's been putting up a lot of good, a lot of numbers, pretty potent offense, but also look at Hudson's defense. Hudson's defense is a grinded out type of defense. They will force Perry or any team that they play to play a specific style and win in that style. And Hudson's defense is great at exploiting mistakes made by the other team forced by the defense. So I'm really impressed with Hudson getting to the state Final Four when they had some big injury. I mean, your all-state kicker is gone, and especially when these games are so close, you're now relying on a backup. You have that. You're luckily they're deep enough in the quarterback and the offensive position to overcome some mistakes or overcome some drives that stall out, and their defense puts them in a position to win. Now, again, it's a different animal in the state Final Four because these are teams you don't run into. I mean, as much as you want to say this, Hudson's played a few of these teams that they've already played. You know what I mean? They've played either by comparison or around the same area. So now we're facing maybe a team where it's not as familiar. You don't have a lot of tape on them. So now you're trying to learn their tendencies, and it's going to require an all-out effort. And I have faith that Hudson will do it. But again, I'm very interested to see how this matchup takes out because it's two really good teams. We're at the point where these are not teams that are in by the skin of their teeth. These teams have won to get to where they are. So and this is the part of the playoffs, especially in Ohio, where it's fun because teams surprise you. Teams that you think, oh man, Perry won last year and they're going to win again. No, Hudson's got something to say about that. And then we see that throughout the entire bracket for Division I all the way down to 6 is that New teams are there. Some teams are back in and they're looking for revenge or looking to build on a good season. So it's definitely, I'm very intrigued to see how the outcome of this Hudson game.
Well, let's look at Division II, Region 6, which is across the way. And actually in Region 8, it's Cincinnati-LaSalle in that lower bracket as they beat Miamisburg to get there. But in this matchup in Division II, Region 6, it's the White House Anthony Wayne Generals taking on the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. And this was a matchup of number 6 against number 4. And this was a game that was hard fought by both teams in some pretty tough conditions. But the Generals would score first with an 11-yard run by running back Evan Brown. He got them on the board. It was 7-0 Anthony Wayne at that time. But the Bulldogs would respond. And this time, we haven't heard this much from Olmsted Falls. It's with a passing touchdown. Brett Hutke to wide receiver Brian Eisman to tie the game at 7. And, Josh, there were actually a few touchdown passes by Olmsted Falls, so they switched up their game plan a little in this game.
Well, that's what you got to do in the playoffs. I mean, I'm sure the other team had some coaches scouting Olmsted Falls, the game that we covered when they played Westlake, and obviously they ran the ball every time. So then it's tough to scout against, tough to practice against something that you haven't seen. So kudos to the coaching staff at Olmsted Falls for throwing that in there.
Yeah, and, adjusting in the playoffs, that's what you got to do to continue on. And Anthony Wayne, though, they would score again thanks to a 2-yard touchdown run by quarterback Nick Schneider. It was 14-7 Generals after 1 quarter of play. Then Anthony Wayne would score again. Early in the second quarter, it was again quarterback Nick Schneider as the Generals' lead expanded 21-7 at this point. But Olmsted Falls, they turned the ball over, but then the Generals' running back Evan Brown gave it right back with a fumble of his own. It was Olmsted Falls who took advantage as Brett Hutke, the quarterback for Olmsted Falls, had his second touchdown pass go for 67 yards to wide receiver Josh Jakin. It was the Generals' lead that was cut 21-14 in the second quarter. Then, not long after the Bulldogs' long pass, Anthony Wayne scored on a 40-yard run that would give the Generals a 28-14 lead at halftime. Then it was Olmsted Falls as they started the second half. First with Spencer the Hammer Linville as Linville's touchdown run again drew a little closer. It was 28-21 Anthony Wayne, and we can thank Josh Jeffy for that hammer phrase with Spencer Linville. I think he loves it.
Well, I love it. I mean, the dude was a beast, and he looks like a 1980s wrestler. So
that was a good time, and all the coaches laughed when we were at that game. That was fun. The Generals extended their lead, though, with a 22-yard field goal by kicker Brad Tanner. It was 31-21 in the third quarter, but then Spencer Linville found the end zone again from 1 yard out, cutting the Anthony Wayne lead to 31-28 in the fourth quarter. The Generals, though, they would score one more time to secure the win. It was 38-31, and they move on and get a huge win for Anthony Wayne. Some stats: Evan Brown, the running back, 287 yards rushing. He had 2 touchdowns. It was Nick Schneider, 222 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns on the day. And Anthony Wayne did a little bit opposite of Olmsted Falls. They ran the ball and ran it very effectively. Over 500 yards of rushing offense by Anthony Wayne in this game. For Olmsted Falls, it was quarterback Brett Hutke. He had 2 touchdown passes on the day. Spencer Linville, he was held to 66 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Although on the year, 27 touchdowns and almost 2,000 yards rushing for Spencer the Hammer Linville. A great season by Olmsted Falls. Give credit, they were sensational this year, especially after, they played well in the regular season, but boy, did they really turn it on during the playoffs. And congratulations to that coaching staff, the fans, the players, everybody out in Olmsted Falls. It was really a great game and a great season for them, and their fans really came out, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, you got to take your hats off to Olmsted Falls for getting this far, and playing. I mean, again, we talked about it in the beginning of the playoffs. The Southwestern Conference was really well represented in this region, and it's a testament to how hard that division is to just, navigate and get wins, and then again to meet the same teams. I mean, they had to beat the same team a couple of times to get to where they are. Unfortunately, Anthony Wayne was just able to overcome it, and congratulations to them on moving forward. And your hat's off to a team like Olmsted Falls for sticking in there and doing whatever they could, despite the fact that maybe no one thought they could make it, or they were a lower seed, or whatever. You know what I mean? No one thought that the 1 and 2 seeds would be out week 1 of that tournament, and then all of a sudden now it's anyone's real region. So definitely a great season for the Bulldogs. Looking to build on that for next year. Again, you got a sweet nickname, the Hammer.
The Hammer.
When I heard that, I was like, wow. It took me back. The Hammer.
Spencer Linville had a great season, and so did really the rest. Brett Hoodke really led that team. I thought he did a great job, really running that offense, because a triple option is not easy. You have to know where you're supposed to be at all times. It has to be quick and fluent. And, Josh Jakin, he's a wide receiver that caught a touchdown pass for 67 yards. The week before versus Westlake, he was actually a running back.
Well, you look at the triple option as an offense, it's one of those offenses where it can easily lull a defense into saying, we got to stop the run. We're going to sell out to stop the run. And what you saw and what you mentioned early on in your recap, Rob, was that we saw them take advantage of that. If you're going to sell out and bring safeties and put, 9 in the box and only put 2 on the outside or 1 on the outside, you got to throw it up a little bit, because you're just begging to do it. And I think that was really crafty. The problem is with the triple options, if you're behind, it's tough to kind of you can't score quickly in an offense like that. You can if you break a run. It's a little bit easier to do in high school than, say, college, or even obviously the pros don't run it. But the triple option is a very good offense for teams that like to focus completely on the run, but also have it in their back pocket to take advantage of when the defense gets a little too predictable in what they're going to do, and you can burn them deep for it. So that's, when you mentioned that, I was like, wow, a triple option, throwing a pass, amazing.
I know, and that's actually what surprised me. 2 touchdown passes by Brett Hoodke, 1 for 67 yards. So they climbed back and fought back, but it wasn't enough. But give credit to Anthony Wayne. They started off playing a tough Glenville team, beating them 21-7. Then in the second round, you face a Southwestern Conference foe in Avon Lake, who just beat Avon, and they won 14-6, and that was a battle there. And then faced an Olmsted Falls team, which they outscored, 38 points. So they had a few low-scoring games, and now they put a 38-point spot on the board, and they will face Cincinnati LaSalle.
Another good team out of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They're another great team.
And they'll be at Sydney High School at 7:30 on Friday. So there's another tough game. And, a lot of these games are going to be fun to watch. Might be a little bit cold, but it'll be fun to watch.
It might be more Ohio weather than
it's
it has been.
Yeah, that's true.
It's playoff high school football weather.
It's shocking now, because we've had, and we talked about this, we had such great weather every Friday night we were out. Like, if it rained or if it was cold or whatever, it wasn't too terrible, because it could have been. So
absolutely, it could have been a lot worse. But what we're going to do, we're going to step away, take a short break. When we come back, we'll go over some of the other divisions going on with high school football playoffs as we continue on Week 13. Coming up, it's going to be the Final Fours. We're Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. We're coming back. High school football playoffs. More ahead.